Hello, good evening. My name is Claudia Aguilar Rubalcaba. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve as Director of Engagement at More Light Presbyterians. And I am so happy to see you all today to hear this important conversation on how we cultivate community, especially as groups that are often in the minority, or at least the visible minority. So um, I am honored to have the two people leading us in this conversation, and they will introduce themselves. So thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Claudia. I will go and then I will introduce my friend. My name is Matt Webb, pronouns he, him. I again am based in Nashville, Tennessee. Originally from Western North Carolina by way of New York City for the past 12 years or so. I was in Manhattan and then moved to Nashville for a different flavor of crazy. Um, and I was excited to talk about this particular subject because I do feel like I have a broad and wonderful chosen family, um, but not really in the area where I live now. So, have just kind of gone through a major change, a shift from being in an area that I was in for about 12 years to for the past 2 years being in Nashville, where I kind of had to start over and have college friends that are here, but they have ended up not being people that I really connect with so much. So I am the director of music at a progressive United Methodist Church that's part of the Reconciling Ministries Network here in Nashville called Belmont United Methodist Church. I'm the director of music and worship and um, run the music program and write a lot of liturgy and put our worship services together. And yeah, and then I'm also on the board of More Light Presbyterians and have been for the past 3 years now. And wanted to share this time together with one of my dearest and oldest friends, not in age, but in years that we've known each other, because she is such a beautiful young spring chicken. So Sarah, tell us about you.
Thanks, Matthew. So I am Sarah Leer. I live in Northwest Arkansas, and I am really excited that Matt invited me to be part of this. Thank you, Claudia, for starting these. I think these are really important conversations. So I love More Light and I love supporting the work that y'all do. So grateful to be with y'all. Um, I do a little bit of youth and young adult ministry for the Presbytery of Arkansas. I am working on anti-ableist worship practices through the lens of children's ministry through a Lilly grant called Growing in Grace with the United Methodist Church. And then I do my own consulting with faith organizations, usually about places that are in transition, or I talk about LGBTQIA plus belonging and inclusion and affirmation. So those are my three jobs. And Matt and I have been friends for a really long time. And so I was really grateful when he reached out to me. And so excited to be with y'all. My pronouns, like you see, are she, her. And I think, should we just get rolling, Matt, and talk about how we know each other and
Yeah,
how our friendship began? And we'll
yeah,
go from there. Um, so Matt and I met in college. We both went to Wake Forest University. I'm from Arkansas originally, and then I ended up at Wake. Matt and I met really probably our sophomore or junior years through mutual friends, and I studied abroad. And when I came back, between my junior and senior year, I needed more credits because I was a religion major. And I needed more credits. And that summer, Matt also happened to be taking summer classes. And so we were just some of a few people on campus, essentially taking one or two classes. So that meant that we had a lot of downtime. And when I realized that Matt was on campus, it's very true, and I don't mind this being on the interwebs, that I ran across the dorm and knocked on his window and probably scared the bejesus out of him. So I didn't know him very well, and that's just my personality. So I showed up at his door, and we hung out all summer, and that's really when we became really close friends. Our senior year, we hung out all the time. And so Matt and I, well, Matt, do you want me to pause so that you can share? Like,
Keep going.
okay.
You're doing a great job.
Okay. So then I went on to live in Louisville for a year and work for the PCUSA, and then ended up in Atlanta for seminary. And Matt ended up in a different part of the country, which he can share. But through our years of being friends, we had these parallel lives, right? So I was in seminary, and then Matt was also in graduate school, and wherever we were, it was that Matt and I continued to have this friendship that was beyond just being next door to each other, right? We weren't across campus from each other anymore. And so we had to figure out what that meant. And I will say, in our young adulthood, something that really emerged was that my mom, who is no longer with us in the world, but my mom loves Matt. She loved Matt dearly. And so at all of our like family events, Matt would get invited. And so my brother, I was reflecting on this with Matt the other day. My brother is younger than me, but Matt's been in his life since my brother was a teenager, right? Because it was just part of that's when we met in our lives. And so anytime that we have a family gathering, or I talk with my dad or whatever, my dad's like, "How's Matt doing?" My mom was like, "Can we bring Matt along? How is he? Where is he? Can he come and join us?" So Matt just became part of our family early on. And then in our young adulthood, we had to navigate that.
Yeah. Um, it was very true that Sarah and I were talking on, some of you may be old enough to remember what AOL Instant Messenger is, from back in the day. That's how we communicated. That's how we knew what, people weren't texting so much in 2002, I guess. Yeah, summer 2002. Some people were texting. I wasn't. But I knew how to use Instant Messenger and download songs on Napster. That was my life that summer. In addition to taking symbolic logic, that was a different lifetime. Um, but yeah, just it. When I was thinking, when you were saying, Sarah, that if it had not been for your personality and your outgoingness and your kind of gregarious nature, we wouldn't be friends, probably. And I think that's one of the important things to think about when you're cultivating a friend group, is that it's really good to have a diversity of personalities in your friend group. It's really good to have those people who um, help you remember what it means to seek each other out, and to be in each other's lives in a way that there's accountability. Sarah's really good with that and has taught me so much about how to be an accountable friend, and how to also living through accountability. We've invited people in our lives not to be in our lives anymore a number of times, whether they be in romantic relationships or they be friendships. Um, and I think it's a process of cultivation, and that we're going to talk about today. We did have parallel lives for a while. I was in seminary at a very conservative Southern Baptist seminary, whilst Sarah was in seminary at a more progressive PCUSA seminary. So I remember I would drive from one part of the state of North Carolina to another, and Sarah would quiz me. We were both taking Greek, biblical Greek, at the same time, and Sarah would quiz me,
So
quiz me on
weird.
she would be like, "Oh my, a etai, amata es the anti," which are different endings for Greek words. Like, no one should ever have to remember that stuff right now. But it just shows you like how weird relationships can be, that you can quiz each other for classes that you're taking at completely different schools in a parallel way. And that becomes your life sometimes. And that's how you get to be closer, is on these long drives of quizzing each other on subjects and trying to help each other get through grad school. I ended up leaving the grad school I was in because of um, it was very conservative. I was coming out and needed to come out and could not be out where I was, and um, ended up leaving my grad program and going into a grad program for music, which was great. A much more open and caring and nurturing environment, at least in with respect to my sexuality in my life, my personal life. So that was a really interesting thing. We definitely had to navigate some bumps as I was figuring out about how to be a progressive Christian. I didn't know at the time I was becoming a progressive Christian. I definitely, the seeds were there, um, but I was struggling through, biblical literalism and trying to wrestle with a God that doesn't have a gender. I don't even think that we were necessarily having that conversation necessarily in 2005, 2006. But
Mm-mm.
when you end up at that point, it's like, wow, how did I get there? And we were really, holding each other's feet to the fire by having these really intense conversations about life and about faith that made us even closer. And we didn't always agree, because I didn't know how to accept anything that had not been conservative Southern Baptist. I was learning how to do that, and Sarah was helping me and was monstrously gracious um, in ways that
I
she
was
had
just
no right to be.
well, thank you, but I was just about to say you're so gracious in saying that, because I was super seminary obnoxious about things, and looking back can see being like, no, this is what we learned, right, in a very like early seminary way, which like luckily Matt has helped me. We've talked through some of these things and been accountable, and um, it and like way more haughty than I should have been at 25. Like really thought that I knew everything, which obviously I did not. So that was super helpful, and like we were gracious with each other, and we did have some fights and talked through those things. And over the years, I think we've learned more about each other. Like we both are a little obsessed with the Enneagram. We talk about that a lot. And that has helped us both, I think, know like our personalities. Um, and in that, like one thing that's been hugely helpful in our friendship and in cultivating this community of chosen family is that we have shown up for each other. I know that that's not always possible.
Mm.
Money, transportation hasn't allowed that all the time. Like we've said that to each other of like, I would love to come see you, but it's just not possible right now. Like I just can't. And you have to, utilize the technology that you have. But for the times that we could see each other, I mean, when my mom died, Matt drove 3 days to be with me and my family, and I can never repay that. That was lovely of him. It was 3 days. It really takes a long time to get to Arkansas. And when he came, part of the beauty of that, during that really difficult time of grief, is that Matt cleaned our house. One of Matt's gifts is cleaning, but it's also one thing that my dad really needs. And so Matt knew that. And so just being present in our friendship and just being present with our family, it was one of those things where it's a gift that I can never repay. But I felt better because my people started showing up. And it's hard to describe, but I just felt at peace. And as much as I love my family and I'm close with my family, there is something about somebody who has chosen you, who like was not part of your family system, your bio family system. And Matt has been one of those people for me, and it's just a gift. And I feel like I can share things with him. He also knows my family well, right? Like he knows my brother and he knows my dad. And so when there are things that happen in my family or my sister-in-law or my nieces, Matt knows those people.
Mm.
So that like we have this shortcut now because of our families. I know his parents, and have been able to show up for their family things. And so it's one of those where if we are able, the two of us have been able to do that. Again, it hasn't happened all the time. And definitely when we were grad students, it was like, I'm gonna come sleep on your couch. I hope that's okay. And we like made that happen. But there are just people in my life, and Matt, I don't even know that you know this, but people from grad school who are like, how's Matt? Like people from seminary, because like he would appear and be like, I'm coming down to Atlanta, for the weekend.
Mm.
So we've spent that time and invested what we could. And then, like Matt said, we've held each other accountable. And there have been times when I have had tension with my, family system, and I have called Matt. Like there are Thanksgivings where I have like gone in a corner and been like, I got to take a minute. Because there are just things that happen, families. But
Hmm.
Matt has chosen family for me. And so when big things happen in my life, relationships or big news, sad news, whatever it is, Matt's one of those people that I refer to as my inner circle in my life. And so those are the people that I tell those things to, those intimate details of my life that I don't share with everybody. And often when things happen, like I'll say to my partner, can I tell Matt? And he
Yeah.
always looks at me and he's like, yes, you can tell Matt. But if it's, I do check, right? Like those are things that I don't like to just,
Boundaries.
boundaries. And I don't like to share people's things, but I will regularly be like, can I tell Matt? So that's an
Yeah.
important part of our friendship too, is that I think we've developed that shorthand with each other and that language,
Hmm.
and cultivated, like, there's just sometimes when your bio family makes you nuts, and that chosen family is, it's just
Yeah.
incredible to have.
Absolutely. And one of the things I was thinking about, we do have the luxury of having been friends consistently for over 20 years. But that luxury doesn't always exist for people.
Right.
Um, but I think one of the things that I've been able to enjoy as adult is kind of striking up acquaintances with people that I might have known 15, 20 years ago, who I look back and I'm like, I was a very different person then. So I'm going to go out on a ledge and try to reconnect with this person that I have no clue where they are going to be politically, socially, how they're going to feel about my life. I wasn't out in college. Is this college person or this high school person or this person I met when I was 24 in seminary? Like, what are they going to be like? How are they going to
Mm-hmm.
accept me? And I've really been fortunate that I've been able to create some chosen family relationships in those ways. Like there are people
Mm-hmm.
we already know that are right to be part of a chosen family, um, if we're willing to put ourselves out there. And sometimes you have to feel it out. It's not comfortable for everyone. Sometimes we're in a place where we feel more like we can put ourselves out there and we feel safe enough to do that. And sometimes you just want to test the waters and be like, am I good at standing up against someone who's going to systematically tear me down for what I believe and what I think and who I am? Besides, my family who is kind of like that. So um, that's a whole different ball of wax. But yeah, it's I think there are a number of ways to go about making um, people a part of your inner circle, making people become part of your family, your chosen family. Um, and inner circles may be small, but I think having those people in your life who can be there, and who you can call and say, "Hey, I'm going through this major medicine change. Like my psychotropic drugs are shifting, and I don't know how to handle this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what's that like?" And somebody's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, that sounds rough. Let's talk about it." Or, "Hey, I just, got broken up with, or I really need to break up with this person because they're not treating me well." Or,
Mm-hmm.
being able to have the people who can help you remember what your worth is,
Mm-hmm.
who have been there to see you grow, and, you know, who can foster you being all of who you are, I think is just really important. And the people who can't accept all of who you are, you have to think about whether you want to make space for them in your life. And sometimes that's our bio family. Um, I'm sure probably most of the people on this call at some point have had some kind of time when they're like, I just can't, like, I can't deal with that right now. Like, that's going to make my mental health just go way over the edge. And
Mhm.
it's the law of diminishing returns, which is, a very capitalistic way kind of to think about it. Forgive that. But it's true. Like, we have to take care of ourselves. And I really believe that chosen family exists to help us take care of ourselves and to make us whole, especially when we
Mhm.
feel like 12 different parts that are shrunken down under a microscope.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Matt also mentioned something earlier. I think it's really helpful sometimes when those friendships aren't like those people that we need to hold tightly anymore, right? And for me, it's about somebody who's going to help hold me accountable, who helps like ask good questions, who will show up and support you. But my particular chosen family are not all people that just say yes, right? My chosen family are people who are not going to sit there and just be like, you're so beautiful and fancy and amazing. Like, that's fun sometimes, and I appreciate that. But I really, really value the people in my life and my chosen family that I've cultivated who will call me out, right? And so I think like that's been super helpful. Matt and I have definitely been in those conversations where he's like, okay, what happened? Like, you took a big left turn, and walk me through how all of that happened. And so sometimes it's just days that I need to vent, and some days it's really like I really need some advice. And I luckily have good people who are like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Um, Ours happened to be a friendship in college, and some of those people I like met in seminary, but some of my chosen family now are also people that I've met in my community in Northwest Arkansas who have similar values that I do, and that's been really helpful. Matt's right, you do kind of have to put yourself out there sometimes. But I have a group of friends in Northwest Arkansas where we're having family dinner once a month, and we're in different life stages, like friends with this couple and they have a baby, right? And that's a very different life stage than mine, but we're going to have dinner once a month. It's not a huge commitment, and that's what we can do right now in our stages in life. And with everything happening in the world, we decided, and part of like I've done some coaching, and my coach was like, it sounds like you need some more queer community. And I was like, super smart. So for me, it's been one of those where like, how am I cultivating more people in my circle? But also like I have really good friends in where I live where we were like, we just need to have regular check-in with each other as chosen
Hmm.
family here.
Yeah.
And so I know it sounds silly, but for us, that intentionality and that vulnerability also is connected to our calendars. Because I'm just like have wild schedules. So I think it's commitment, right? I can think it's that time that we can say, this day is what we're setting aside.
Hmm.
Um, and I will be there, right? Like that is our commitment to each other to make that happen. So I think for me, that's been a consistent theme of building those relationships and being as consistent as we can, and then being gracious with each other when we can't, when like life gets in the way.
And you go on these journeys of like, I am a person who is, I don't know what to call myself anymore. Neurodiverse is one term that can be used to describe some things that are going on in my brain. And I love that. I love that part of me, but it's also something that not everyone can handle, you know? Um, I'm a person that has ADHD, and I that manifests itself in a lot of different ways every day. Sometimes they're new and different, and I'm like, huh, I have this new pattern. I need to talk to somebody about that. Um, but you have to have those people in your life that will go on that journey too. And that's not everyone. Not everybody in your friend circle is going to be on the journey of talking about like, I took this test today about, one of the online tests about autism or whatever. Um, and will you take that with me? You know, Sarah's the kind of person I could be like, will you take this test with me? And she'd be like, yeah, of course. Like, but that's the thing. You have to find those people who get you where you are. And I think that's
Yeah.
really important. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've just been thinking about that journey recently, and you know, I'm 45 now. Sarah's 44. I hope you don't mind me saying. Um, but you know, we're dealing with the things that you deal with in those years of your life. People no longer being with you, or all right, this is how many years I hope to have left in life. What do I do with those? And do I want to spend my days doing these things? Or wow, I am really burned out from doing these things just to pay the bills. Do I want to just pay the bills, you know? Or hey, I don't have any work. I need to work. I don't have a job. I need to have a way to live. Um, all of those things are really crucial to be able to have that community of support around you.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
should we just have some open chat time? I think if people have anything that they want to share, I think that the more that we hear other people's voices, the better we are as humans. Well,
Agreed.
most of the time, I feel very comfortable with this room of people doing that. But you know, I think I would love to hear from any of you.
So one of the
Did-
questions we had in the signups that appeared is if the concept of let me just look of chosen family applies only for the queer community.
It's a good question.
Ooh.
I don't think that it does, but I will say, like, being in that place of being a marginalized person, like, it's just so valuable, right? Like, if it's that that shared understanding of how the world sees you, whatever that means for you and your identity, but to be able to look at somebody else and be like, I've had that similar experience, even though maybe you just met. If you've had that similar experience of how the world has perceived you or labeled you or immediately cast you aside or whatever it is or ignored you, um, that can be really powerful.
And I think we're living in a time to. Sorry, please go.
Sorry. Also, neurodiversity. We are supposed to stop recording. So I'm going to stop recording before you continue, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cool.